Hi everyone, we are live and I am here today with Sophia Harvey, who is in Intuitive Living, the current multi-author book that I'm putting together. If you don't know me, my name is Crystal Hill. I'm the publisher, and Sophia has a really special opportunity coming up very shortly, and I felt like it's such a powerful theme. It's about courage and how we can step courageously into our own essence, into being courageously ourselves, especially at a time like this. So I'm really curious, Sophia, how this courage piece, why did that resonate with you? Why did you create a course around that?
Good question. I have been working with people for a long time on a one-on-one basis, and something that has been a really recurrent theme is stepping into vulnerability and really being able to be yourself in your full expression, and all of the resistance and reservation that comes in doing that, especially when the you that's sitting inside is going against a grain, is going against some sort of flow that is, the current norm. And I'm seeing more and more people talking about vulnerability and working with vulnerability. It's becoming a much more common thing. And so for me, this courage piece is really about supporting people to just be themselves, to go, why not? Of course, I'm just going to be me. I'm going to step into vulnerability. I'm going to just shine as me. Because I think when people are able to do that, they are just such amazing versions of themselves. They are able to really dive into that creative essence. They're really able to follow their own natural flow, their own natural rhythm. And it's often that resistance to courage, resistance to taking that step into vulnerability that keeps us away from really being our full expression.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one thing about knowing it and thinking that you should do something, but the resistance can often be there because of all the conditioned fear patterns that are really in the way of our true self. And then that courage, cultivating the courage, is just such an important piece to get into that flow and beauty that we are.
And often people say, well, I'm already being courageous. Like, I don't need more courage. And then when I really sit with them and work a bit more deeply, it's like, oh, actually, I could be a bit more courageous in this work setting, or I could be more courageous in my relationships, or I'm not quite fully being me. I am holding back for fear of what someone will think or how it will be received. And so it's an interesting word. It's a strong word. And I've chosen it on purpose because I think for most of us, there's an area in our lives that we could be more courageous in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's so much fear of rejection and so much fear of not being loved for when we fully become who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And in my psychology practice, at the guts of most issues is self-love, self-worth. And
Yeah.
when I look at self-love and self-worth, and I look at courage, I see this really strong relationship between the two. The more courageous we can be, the more loving we be. And it's kind of like this cycle that continues. You deepen into courage, you deepen into self-love, self-worth. They kind of feed into each other.
Yeah, that is so true. It's like a spiral, isn't it? It's like, yeah, the more courageous the more self-loving we are, the more courage we have to stand up for who we are. And the more courage we display, the more it's a feedback on the amount of self-love we have, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's just share a little bit about your background and what is the background, what are the foundations upon which you are offering this work, like your qualifications and experiences?
Well, I've got a very richly diverse background. I started out as a very driven criminal lawyer and human rights lawyer, very passionate, caring a lot about humanity, caring a lot about change. And I did that for quite a few years in Australia and globally. And I felt like a mouse running flat out, going nowhere really, just constantly churning people through a system that wasn't working. And I'd studied psychology at the same time as law, so I sort of decided to get more into human-focused work earlier on before hitting the justice system. So I worked in community development and international development, and then kind of fell into working with refugees and asylum seekers for about 9 years in torture trauma specialization. So I've had this really strong background in working in intensities with the depth and breadth of human experiencing, people who have experienced incredible trauma, people who have been done things that they kind of wish they hadn't, that are not the greatest behaviors. And something that I learned in all of those roles was that at the core, people just have this really beautiful or loving essence. It's like they can do awful behaviors or they can treat themselves awfully, but at the core, they're really just beautiful souls. And I could always connect with that within a person, eye to eye. And so that thread of this beauty within people has fed into my work then as a psychologist. And I've seen the same in that work. And I'm really passionate about supporting people back into that space, to support people into deep connectivity with that space inside of them. So I think when people are in that space of deep love and deep connectivity, they just do beautiful things.
Yes.
And so connection really threads through all my work. It's like, gosh, when we connect, really connect with who we are in relationship with the world, spiritually, internally, then we can really shine wholeheartedly as ourselves and really be the best versions of ourselves. So courage feeds into that process. When we cultivate courage to really be ourselves, we support that shininess. I like the sun, like having the sun inside of ourselves and shining out. And that's when we're in that loving space. That's when we're in that courageous space.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like, knowing and having read your story that you're sharing in Intuitive Living, you've got this unique positioning really where you're highly intuitive and also highly educated, like highly scientific, based in the scientific space. And so you're bringing those two together to, I guess, also work with the people who are just coming out of corporate or coming out of that and maybe haven't fully embraced the spiritual or finding it all a bit too woo-woo. You are actually somebody who can explain how, scientifically explain how and why it all works and why this self-love is so important. And so that's anyway, maybe you want to share a little bit more about that, but I really feel like that's your unique positioning in this work and in this field.
And that's the feedback I get from my clients, is that I really am like a bridge. I work with the spiritual and the scientific, and I have this framework that I've developed called the Zebra Crossing Framework, which is the intersection of psychology, science and spirituality, and that really underpins all my work. So when people work with me, they get a bit of science, they get a bit of spirituality, they get a bit of psychology, and it's woven together to explain concepts, to support processes, and to assist in one-on-one as well as group work.
I love that zebra crossing. I just had to kind of think, okay, so how does that relate to these three things? Can you explain where that concept came from? What does it represent to you?
So it comes from me thinking about, okay, who's drawn to me? And they tend to be people who are thinking a little bit outside the box. They're not quite fitting into a mold. They are quite unique. And when I think of unique, I think of zebras. Okay. And so I think of the zebras as being these incredible animals that just stand out. And the more and more I thought about zebras, the more I thought, oh, it's perfect, because they've got the black and the white, like the yin and the yang. They contain all the polarities within those colors. No two zebras have the same stripes in the world, which is pretty cool. And they thrive in community. And a group of them is called a dazzle, which fits in perfectly with this idea of this shining sun. So all of my work comes under the heading of the zebra crossing, the programs do. And then I like to think of the people I work with, and myself included, as the zebras of the world.
Nice. I love that. Thanks for explaining that. You mentioned a little bit already, who is drawn to your work. So I want to elaborate on this a little bit more. So who is this program? You've got is it a 6-week program called Courageously You?
12 weeks.
12 weeks.
Yeah. So I draw entrepreneurs, professionals who think outside the box, people who are often really quite highly intelligent and also sensitive. And I work a lot with people to support them to marry the two together, to integrate the two, to really thrive in their work, relationships, everyday life. And creative people I often attract as well. They're often a crossover with the entrepreneurs.
Yeah, beautiful. So somebody who's your ideal person who's coming into this 12-week program, where are they at, and where will they be at the end of the time with you?
Good question. They're people who have already done a bit of self-development work. They already know a bit about themselves. They've already dived in. They understand the process of diving in and through. And they're people who are at a point in their lives where they're going, you know what, I'm doing okay, but there's something more. There's something more that I would love. There's an area of my life perhaps that isn't thriving quite as much as I'd like. It's like perhaps everything's going well at home, but there's something else in work they'd like to shift, or vice versa. Sometimes it might be in all areas of their lives, but they're doing okay, and they're going, okay, I just want to, I know there's more. I know there's more. And so and they're enthusiastic about the process.
Yeah, they're the ones who are constantly striving for the next, to better themselves and finding that next best version of who they are.
Yeah. And, if you're going to work with me, it'll be a deep dive. I don't do shallow. So it's someone who is happy with depth, and I bring in a lot of play with that. So it's this depth with play that will be a part of the journey.
You mentioned to me earlier before we started that there's sort of 3 themes, 3 pillars that you take people through. Maybe you can just briefly explain that. And for the rest, anybody who's interested, they can go on your website and reach out to you specifically to see if it's a good match.
Yes, I should say before I talk about it, my website is currently in operation. So the best way to reach out to me is via email. And I can give those details at the end. So I have 3 key transformational focus areas, and the first and so the course is divided into those 3. There'll be one each 4 weeks. There'll be a new topic. So the first one is clearing, and that's around really clearing the limiting patterns that are sitting inside of us sitting in our bodies, in our minds, in our energetic field, that are holding us back from really, really thriving. So I will take people through different practices and processes that I've developed that support you to really clear those patterns out of the system. I think of them a bit like weeds. So we've got to get into the garden and pull out the weeds. Sometimes they can look really pretty, but we can decide, no, actually, they're not what I really want there. And once we pull them out, we can create space for more growth. So that process of clearing is really getting to know what I want in there and where the patterns are that I want to move through. And then the next section is about connection. And that's where I have these 4 pillars of connection, which are self, other, spirit, and nature. And I talk about them separately, but when you really deepen into connectivity, they become one. And so the processes I take people through are really supporting connection on each of those levels, and also connection in that oneness state. And through that journey, we look at soul level alignment with values, with needs, with dreams, with desires as well. And then the last section is creating courage, confidence, and commitment to really be you in the world. So sort of once we've cleared and then got connected, then we move into the creation. And in that section, really work a lot with changing the relationship with fear so that we can still move forward when some fear is there. We look at, really diving into anything else that might be standing in the way of stepping into confidence. And this is where the group is so beautifully supportive, because we support each other into this journey through barriers into confidence and courage. And vulnerability forms a big part of this last section. And we do work with that in a group setting, which can be really powerful. I find it much more powerful than one-on-one, because you have that witnessing and that holding and that nurturing in this group with people on the same path. So,
yeah, I love group work as well for that reason. And the participants often can reflect back aspects of us, and they can show us, oh yeah, I'm the same here, but I'm not there. And so it really helps us also to understand ourselves a lot better in comparison to, or in not comparison is the wrong word, but in, what's the right word here? We're not the mind works with contrast, isn't it? Comparison and contrast, and really understanding ourselves more deeply. And the group questions that come in and the themes that emerge are mirrors and aspects of a universal theme, or a universal fear that we all hold, but in different ways.
Yeah, and I've really found that in the past groups that I've run, that people will be like, oh, I can really identify with what that other person's saying. And so when we have the group sessions, we have 6 of those plus a beautiful closing ceremony. When we have those sessions, people all share really deeply and personally, and there are these universal themes that come up. And when they come up, then we dive into them more deeply together, and there's that sense of solidarity. Even though people are having different experiences within those themes, the themes are still relatable.
Yes, exactly. And that's the beauty of what I love about sharing stories of inspirational leaders and thought leaders, because we all have a theme, a story that is relatable to the reader to enhance the understanding of our own biography, of our own story. So I'm just bringing it nicely back to the writing and back to reading stories and reading biographies, especially when they are about a common theme and when we are reflecting on something and bringing together the different puzzle pieces of human experience into one cohesive whole, where we can all recognize ourselves, especially when we've reflected on the journey and we've gotten the learnings and we've really walked a certain walk.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you for sharing your program. I think it sounds incredible, and we all need the courage to be who we are at this time. So I invite anybody who's resonating with Sophia's work to just get in touch with her. We put all the details into the comments. I've got the email there on the screen right now, so you can connect with her, and probably also on Facebook. So thank you so much, Sophia. I mentioned Katerina because she had a comment in the she sent us a comment, and I wanted to get back to her, and I haven't. So her name was in the background here, but yes. It's been lovely talking to you, and all the best for the project.
Great. Thanks, Crystal.
Thank you.